もう一回トーストを呼んでくれエース
What's up, everyone? Welcome to 3 out of 10 anime fans recommend you check out this podcast if you ever get reincarnated into another world, aka 3 out of 10 anime. This show is all about having fun conversations to rank anime based on a standard set of criteria so they can be organized, compared, and contrasted. We discuss a different show or movie each week, so whether you're a seasoned weeb or new to the genre, we know you'll have a good time. If this is your first time joining, welcome. Here's the agenda for each episode. First 5 minutes, we describe the show in one sentence and give an overview of our first impressions. Then we talk about our personal enjoyment on a scale of 1 to 10 and give justifications for that enjoyment score. Then we jump into our technical assessment where we have a combined rubric and we collectively define the show in 5 different categories on a scale of 1 to 10. Then last 5 minutes, we give our comparisons and recommendations to other show and talk about the next show that we'll be doing next week. I'm Brett.
I'm Skyler.
And I'm Braydn.
And we're your hosts from the United States. We each have varying opinions, tastes, and backgrounds, which should result in some interesting and relatable dialogue that you can relate to, no matter who you are. We're grateful you're all joining us this week for our discussion about Haikyuu Season 1, the sports anime available on Crunchyroll. We'll be talking again about Season 1, all of Season 1, so spoiler warning. Expect spoilers. If you don't want them, pause, go watch the show, come back. So without further ado, how would you guys describe Haikyuu in one sentence?
Just a good story. I mean, I'm gonna catch myself on that in a second. A good story with like good old sports anime about volleyball.
Okay, all right. Sky,
Boy, howdy, it is that.
It's a run-on sentence. It's Joe. Skyler, how would you describe it in one sentence?
A young boy with a large jump plays volleyball as much as he can.
Okay. I will describe it as a good sports anime despite its drawn out moments is what I will say. So that's one sentence. That kind of reveals our first impressions. Let's give our enjoyment on a scale of 1 to 10 each of us, and then talk about why. Braydn, do you want to start again?
I would love to. So for my ranking, I have to know this every time. Anything above a 4 is a show I'd recommend. If you fall below a 4, you ain't gonna get past me. And so when I say this one's a 6, I say this one securely set itself at something that I liked watching. I enjoyed it. This is actually my first sports anime that I've ever watched, and so I had a good time with it. You know, I liked it. I liked the energy. It was fun. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing like revolutionary, but for an intro to sports anime, that was solid.
Okay.
Very good stuff.
So you give it a 6?
6 out of 10.
Sky, what would you give it?
So the rating that I would give Haikyuu is a 7. And then for my rankings, I do it a little bit differently than Braydn does, where it has to be, I think it has to be a 6 or a 7. Yeah, it has to be a 7 for me to start recommending it to people readily. And so Haikyuu, it is one that I would readily recommend, but it's not one that I would watch again by my own.
Okay, interesting. And for anyone wondering, you can find our personal rubrics linked in our YouTube channel, Facebook page, Twitter, all those places. For me, I give Haikyuu a 7. And for me, a 7 is a show that it was a great show. It kept me interested, entertained, it kept me engaged, but it had some things that bothered me or just didn't really suck me in enough to push it into that upper echelon, which to me, like, the upper echelon is 8, 9, 10 for me for enjoyment. So I was interested and engaged, entertained, but there were some things I probably just didn't vibe with. So for me, it's a 7. And I can start by saying some of the things I really liked about Haikyuu and some of the things I did not like so much. And I'm just going to go back to my one sentence intro and say good sports anime, because I think a lot of the things that I was really passionate about sports growing up was communicated super well in the show. Like the teamwork aspect, the individual pride aspect, the wanting to be the very best and catch them all aspect, the dealing with loss, which is something Haikyuu did so good that not a lot of shows do really well. So like it was really like it hit home a lot from like doing sports so much. But that actually brings a question I have for you guys. How much did you do sports growing up, and did this show hit you in that way or not?
So very little, Brett. It's so very little. Like my parents had me go in for a lot of years, but as soon as they hit junior high and my band involvement counted for me as doing sports, I just kind of just dropped doing sports altogether.
Sure.
Now, that said, as an adult, I started playing volleyball like here and there, and I actually quite really got into volleyball specifically. So,
heck yeah.
I mean, I learned so much about volleyball through this, but I don't have any hits to reference back to, not personally.
But that didn't impact your ability to enjoy the show.
No, not in the slightest.
No. In fact, I'm pretty much in the same boat as Braydn, where the sports that I did in junior high school was track and golf. So real competitive there, real physical sports right there.
Okay, but like, we know there could definitely be a sports or a golf anime. We all collectively can disagree.
Is.
That could
There
definitely
is.
be a thing.
I
There
haven't
is.
seen it,
Okay,
but there
I
is.
figured.
Okay, so it says the top 5 anime about golf is Beat Shot, Dondo, Pro Golfer Saru, and Pro Golf. Oh, another Pro Golfer Saru.
Well, and those are just the top 5.
Ashita Tenki ni Nare.
All right, then go for it. I'm brand new to this whole world. That's where I'm at. Like, this is all
there
new
are
to me.
animes on bike racing, like bicycle racing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So.
And swimming.
Yeah.
And one about a very interesting made-up sport involving a lot of women.
Yeah, and butting into the pool, right?
Hey,
yeah,
that's the
I know
one.
what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Okay, but back to Haikyuu. Some of the other things that I really did like was I actually thought a lot of the animations for like jumping up and spiking and the serving and the setting, like the setting was good. So like I thought the way that they executed on what volleyball is was great, and this probably impacted my ranking. But one of the things that made this so enjoyable to watch was that we watched Haikyuu during the Olympics when the U.S. U.S. volleyball team won the gold medal. And so like I finished watching Haikyuu and then like literally the next day watched the gold medal match for the U.S. women's volleyball team. And so I was like in tears watching the U.S. women's team. Like it was incredible like that. And seeing how well they executed on the technical aspects of the show, like the sports aspects of the show. That was awesome. I loved it. And my wife, she didn't like volleyball. She did not like volleyball before watching Haikyuu. After watching Haikyuu, she was like, I like volleyball. I want to play volleyball. I want to go watch volleyball. So we went to a college tournament and she loved it. Like if an anime can get my wife to like a sport, it's a really good anime.
Like I walked out of Haikyuu knowing more about volleyball than I ever thought I could. It did that. Like it did, and I might be finding that more as I'm watching more and more sports anime, that they know how to do that. That they know that the viewer, wants to see that. Because so far, to say the sports in generic, volleyball, ice skating, and skateboarding have all been given out to me, and I know more about all those things now that I've watched the anime. That's really cool to me.
Yeah, I want to watch the skateboard one.
The skateboard, I watched that one right now. It's pretty good.
It looks really good.
It's fun.
What were you gonna say, Sky?
Well, yeah, it's just that the sports animes are ones where the fact that, kind of like you mentioned, that you can watch Haikyuu having no background in volleyball, but then you can watch the Olympic match and be like, oh, hey, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Says a lot as to how well they executed on Haikyuu, and that they did it in an enjoyable way.
Yeah.
And part of that enjoyment for me is, so there's like 6 different roles, like in Haikyuu, in volleyball, and like was the libido? What's
Libero.
Yeah.
Libero is the
Libero, thank you.
defensive.
The defender.
Setter, spiker, or I guess the ace is
Ace.
what I end up referring to do. And then I think one way the anime did that, which is the intro of me figuring out these things, is that every character that had that position was passionate about the position. They were proud and excited, and they screamed at you saying, "No, my position is the best, and here's why."
Yeah.
And then they showed that, and they were right the whole time. Their position was the best. I love their position.
Yeah.
As soon as they did that, I can watch the rest of the thing and know exactly why they're throwing themselves on the ground or running at the net or whatever, being extreme for the rest of the anime, because it made sense.
And I think with like, okay, so that allowed, like, I want to transition from that into like the word extreme, because this kind of gets into one of the things that I actually really did not enjoy about the show. And like, so first of all, I understand that like they're teenagers, so they're already going to feel more extreme than, like me or an adult, for example. And I know that anime is naturally by genre extreme, but the thing that kind of got me with Haikyuu, and one of the main things I didn't like, was that everything was always extreme. Every serve, every hit, every save, and the only time it wasn't was when they did quick like dot, 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 dot. Now the score is 26-11. And other than that, if someone was on screen, whatever was happening was extreme and was super dramatic. And so for me, I did start to get weary by the end of the season, where I was like, okay, not every hit needs to feel like it's a life and death situation. Not every serve has to be a character defining moment. And for me, it kind of started to drag on, and I kind of by the end of the first season was like, okay, I feel like this show could have told the exact same story with the exact same character growth and development, with the exact same emotion in 2/3 of the time, because there were a lot of times where I was like, okay, this hit does not need that level of, and to me it almost is a disservice to the show, because it's like in The Incredibles, when everyone is super, nobody is. And it's like when every single hit is life and death dramatic. So anyway, I've ranted too much. That's one of the main things I didn't enjoy about the show. It just kind of went too far.
Okay. I mean, because I can see that for a bit. However, I can see that for a bit, because one of my big gripes about this anime is that it was 25 episodes, and by the end of it, I was tired of volleyball, specifically volleyball. Like, I just seen it. I'd seen a lot of it. They're mixing up a little bit, but I am a little bit done. I'm a little bit okay and done at this point. And there's not really a strong overarching story. It's like whatever hits the next bite. I mean, I know it's part of this huge arc to like further and further tournaments given. Yeah, I'll give you that. However, it's just a lot. I wasn't there for all of it.
Yeah. And the last match, last game they played in season 1, it took like 4 episodes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, like, okay, like 1 episode took like 3 points. 3 points took a whole episode. And like, I get and respect that, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, let's move on. Let's go.
Because
at the same time, though,
about your extremeness.
At the same
Go
time,
for it,
though,
Skyler. I've talked too much. Go for it.
That's kind of a problem of pacing, though, is because with certain stories where it's like, if you don't only show those high beats, well, then it's boring, and skip the unnecessary bits to get to the points that are important. And even there, kind of like you said, contrast in art, or it's like, what is the darkest point on the page? Well, it completely depends on what the price point on the page is. Because if you have 2 tones that are really close to each other, there's not that much unless you make one tone really stand out compared to the other. And the same thing is true with action. This is a bit more on the technical side, But even there, I feel like Haikyuu actually did a good job at not making every single serve, like you said, a character-defining moment. Because one of the things I noticed is that they reused animations quite a bit in Haikyuu.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that
And
too.
there were a lot of serves. Well, there was a lot of serves, both intense and also just hyper casual, that they reused. Especially referring to the last game that you were talking about. Like, there were some where they just whacked it and the game started. It wasn't a super intense serve, but it's still, I don't know, it's a hard thing when you get there where it's like balancing between keeping it active enough that the pacing is good, but also balancing it with the low points enough so that it's not just boring and they messed up the pacing in the other direction.
And I think that's where my point is like to Braydon said, like, there are shows where after 25 episodes, I'm like, I'm going to keep watching. Like, I want to keep watching more. But if I get to
ReZero.
Yeah, ReZero. But if I get to 25 episodes in a show and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of tired. Like, there was some kind of problem with pacing or story or something, and for me it was the extreme level of how long it took for like one thing to happen. One game taking 4 episodes. Yeah, go ahead, Braydon.
Because the extreme level of stuff actually is a very interesting point for me that I actually really dug out of it, because the extreme measures came from somehow in this anime they made every character of every team and every team have their own personality that I like understood and slightly cared about.
Totally.
And saw the interactions.
Yeah.
So while they did a lot of that, like 25 episodes of that, kudos to them. I don't know what that was supposed to do for like an overall story thing, like what the long-term arc was, but like it kind of felt fresh when they walked into a new stadium and then there's this steel wall guy that he's way too tall and he can just overshadow any spiker. Like, what do you do about that? And they struggle with that, and then it becomes a tussle, and like that, all that is so cool, especially since they led in with, we have a really unique setup. We have a setter and we have a spiker that can get past, that can just drive a shot before you can even blink.
So,
they can shoot before the set's even like directed.
Yeah. So to your point, Braydon, actually, looking at the list, it shows that there are 85 episodes in Haikyuu.
Yeah, I've watched them.
And so I've only seen the first season, so you can probably correct me. But this first season felt very much like a setup for the rest of the series, where these characters that have been introduced are essentially going to be these players and these teams that you're going to butt up against time and time again, and that are going to bring a slight twist on whatever their thing is each time they encounter each other.
Yes. Yep, I can confirm.
So
it does take a bit of I think they even stretch out some games longer in the later seasons, like the big tournament ones.
They do.
Though it's been a couple of years, so I don't remember much of the later seasons. I'm refreshed on this season that we're talking about, but not the later ones.
No.
It's ongoing?
No.
I'm pretty sure it's ongoing.
Pretty sure,
because
I know there's like a couple movies and the 3 seasons.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the later seasons of Haikyuu, and yeah, everything Braydon said checks out.
Yeah,
and that, but to your point, Braydon, one of the things I loved about Haikyuu was the character development all the way through. The development of individual characters, the development of the teams in their relationships with each other and within themselves. The setters from the 2 teams, the king and the god king, like their relationship, like I really, really liked the character progression and the development of everyone in the show. Like, I'm on board with you there. I also just wish it didn't take quite so long, because I want like, I get that this is the someone's gonna slay me for this, the Naruto of the sports anime world, where it's like a long drawn out story and everyone has character arcs that take 20 episodes to get started, but there's a reason I wanted to throw up after watching Naruto.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and I liked
Naruto, just by the way.
Oh, good. I haven't tried. I did try. That's a lie. I did try, and I fell off for some reason.
It reminds me of My Hero Academia for the same reason.
Oh yeah. Oh
Well,
yeah.
I wanna note, because we're gonna talk a lot about like this. I bet you anything, we're gonna come back to points similar to this one, and we're gonna say, okay, there were just so many side characters I didn't care. Like, I don't know what, I don't care about their crap is. I want the main guy, and I want more of his stuff or what they're doing with him. Not this anime. That's not it. And I do want to shout out though, we're 20 minutes into our recording here. We haven't even talked about the main character yet of the anime.
The two
Which
main
should
characters.
say something about sports anime in general. That's kind of how I see. But yeah, the two main sports, the characters. How you guys feel about them? How are they for you guys?
I really liked them. I liked their relationship together. I do feel like with a lot of the characters, the story needed them to be dramatic, but their reasons for being dramatic maybe really didn't make that much sense, or they weren't really that, but what about being a teenager is logical anyway. So but like rewatching it again, like seeing Hinata and Kageyama and some of these other guys, like why they were such rivals wasn't justified that much, but like we kind of went with it for the sake of the show. But I did like them.
But what school rivalries are justified? Let's be honest here.
Oh,
like in the valley where I grew up,
I'm talking about
we just had a rival.
The two main characters on the same team. The setter and the spiker.
Oh, those two. Okay,
yeah, those two. Like, yeah, school rivalries for sure. Like, come from the same team. I want to beat that guy. Yeah, 100%. I totally get that. But like on the same team, like when they first got together in the gym, episode 2 or episode 3, and he was like, "Why are you here?" And they're like, "Oh, we hate each other." And I was like, "Wait, why do they hate each other?" Like they played each other. At first, and this guy looked up to this guy, and yeah, they want to beat each other, but now they're on and they disliked each other for so long. Like I was kind of fine with it, but
see, I was gonna say how much I love that setup. That was a cool setup for me.
Well, I'm between the two of you, where it was a nice foil to kind of go into. I guess this would be, again, more on the technical side of things, where it's a trope that they played into. And the trope played out pretty much as the trope does. But kind of like Brett was saying, the justification for that isn't quite the same way. Because, again, the whole trope is the whole, Midoriya and Bakugo in My Hero. But in My Hero, that distaste for each other is way more justified, stemming mostly from Bakugo and just his issues.
Despite the fact that it... Never mind. We'll cover that in the My Hero episode.
Yeah. But again, but then when we look at Haikyuu, it's like, oh yeah, the one time I went to a school tournament in junior high, your team beat me, so I hate you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I wish... Like, I'm good with that foil, like Skyler said. I'm good with the rivalry thing. Oh, we're on the same team and we have to learn to work together. That is cool to me. I like that. I just wish there was a little more given to why they had such a dislike for each other, with maybe some more justification other than you beat me one time. Because I could have used a little more juice there. But however, going to two other characters who I thought their interactions were totally justified and really powerful was the libero and the ace on the main team, right? Like how the ace was blocked by Donchi or whatever the school with the iron curtain, the iron wall.
Yeah.
And then he decided to give up. And then the libero was like, you can't just like give up. Like we're your team, we're your family. They have that fight in the locker room and the broom snaps in half. And like their relationship and their tension to me was super understandable, justified, relatable, way more than the two main characters as we heard just talked about. So like their relationship to me was way more relatable and like I was able to connect to it a lot more because it made more sense, and like that level of drama to me was more justified, and I really enjoyed that relationship in the show a lot.
I would agree with that, and that whole confrontation that you mentioned there is a confrontation. It is a fight, but it's not one that is fueled by antagonism, if you get what I mean, which is what they were essentially setting up those two for in the beginning of like, oh, hey, we don't like each other, compared to the Libero and the Ace, which is like, hey, you can't walk out on family, essentially.
Well, and I'm just going to give a toss to my guys because I liked their setup. I thought it was well justified. Hinata, he came in, he basically knew squat about volleyball compared to what level he needed to be playing at. But he was a team player, and he was willing to like stick out and work until he could get the thing he wanted, which is to stay on the court. Whereas Kageyama, he wasn't a team player, and he was extremely good at sports. Like like if those the pillars of what those characters are, go like this, you go boop.
That's
that
true.
was the interaction. That's the rivalry.
True.
That's the dichotomy of that relationship. And I thought they flushed into that well and got to smooth out the edges. For example, unless you got something to say right now.
I was just going to say that I think the main justification is Kageyama's personality overall, of his selfish, I will carry the team, we will win at all costs personality issues that he started to overcome when he was taken out of the match for the first time and the other setter was put in. His personality carried most of the justification for me, which is why it didn't bother me the first time watching it. It wasn't until the second time I watched it I was like, but anyway, Braydn, what else were you gonna say, Braydn?
I was just say like, because when they first get together and they like the team captain says spoilers, believe it or not, spoilers. The team captain says, "Hey, you two got to figure your stuff out. You're not gonna be on the team." So they do, and then play a 3-on-3 like within the team, and they learn how to do their amazing spike, and they're playing incredibly, and they've got the mojo to start working together. The next arc, they're going to a practice match at a rival school, and and the first thing that happens is Hinata uses character trait and beelines it for the bathroom because he's nervous as crap, starts throwing up, and he meets a player from the other school who knows Kageyama, and they instantly kind of hit it off immediately because they both like have issues with the guy and how he stuck up with his. And so even though they just figured stuff out, they hadn't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
So I liked them smoothing the edges of those characters as the story went. They handled it really well.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'd agree with that, but kind of like to Brett's point, I guess, is essentially focus the antagonism around that. For example, like when he sets the ball and it hits Hinata in the face, have him be more angry about that. Like let that
I think it was Hinata spiking and it hit Kageyama in the back
that's
of the
a different one. That's a different one.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Where I was like, have those kind of events, have that be the fuel for that antagonistic foil rather than, oh, you beat me once. Because, getting spiked in the back of the head with a ball, I'm going to be more mad at you by doing that than you beating me in a game.
Sure. Okay, so
I'll give you that one.
we're coming up on our time here for personal enjoyment. Any other final like super quick points anyone wants to throw out that didn't get covered, didn't like, and then we'll do a recap of our scores.
Yeah, I do. So there's the team manager character. Her name is Kyoko.
Okay.
And the boys are just wantonly, I guess the word I wouldn't use is sexually aggressive towards her. And it just washes.
You mean they're normal high school boys?
I mean, they're normal high school boys. They're going to be horny, but nobody calls them out on it. Like nobody on the team does anything about it. If they say that, then I'm more right with it. But it's a statement of just letting that wash as a team spirit. I don't like that, and so I don't like it. That's what it comes to.
Fair. I thought they did get called out a couple times on it though.
Not in the first 10 or 7 episodes, whatever I watched recently.
Fair.
Which is enough for the state, like the culture at least there.
Yeah.
Right. I think, it's never really addressed, but it's always kind of brushed off either by the team or by her.
What else? Any other quick points? Like, didn't like?
Nothing comes to mind in terms of enjoyment.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I think I'll just close up with I watched it. I liked watching it. I wasn't excited always to watch it, but I enjoyed that we did it as part of our anime club. So,
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the scores once again for personal enjoyment. I gave a 7. Skyler also gave a 7. And Braydn gave a 6.
6.
Okay, so we will jump into our technical assessment. So the technical rubric can be found the same place as our personal enjoyment rubrics, linked in all of the places. We judge it on 4 categories: art, story, characters, and delivery. And each of those categories can be scored on a scale of 1 to 5. And just as a quick overview here, 1 is terrible. So for example, in art, frequently bland, poorly done, and or repetitive. 5 is exceptional. So for art, the composition always delivers powerful moments in an excellent fashion. So we score each one 1 to 5. Let's go ahead and start with art, work our way down to story, characters, delivery. This category of art includes music, animation, art style, and the intro outro songs. What are you guys thinking?
The first note that I have on this is just I did notice that they reused animations quite a bit.
Yeah.
However, I would have to give them a point for it never felt too bad whenever they were reusing an animation. Because there are certainly animes that I've seen where they reuse animations just like, every time they did. But for here, I think it's because it's a sports anime, is that there's a lot of repetitive motion. And so for those, the context was always just a little bit different. And so it made sense as to why they were doing the exact same motion because, oh, guess what? That's how you serve. Or that's how you set.
It did get a little distracting for me at points where I was like, okay, that's the 20th time I've seen that wave the ball hitting the ground. But I do agree with you. They kept it pretty good most of the time. There are some baseball anime that reuse animations to the point that you're just like, okay.
Yeah, the only the only thing that I would kind of dock them on is that whenever there was a flashback, it was always the same scene, and that got older faster because it was a flashback.
Yeah. The flashbacks in this for me were egregious.
But it works so well for Naruto.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. It was bad there.
Oh,
it
my
was
bad, my
here.
bad. I haven't seen it. I wouldn't know.
Oh my, yeah, no. But like, especially, and here's the thing: I get why flashbacks exist from a technical perspective. Okay, so the episode comes out 2 weeks later. Maybe you don't remember what happened. They want to call back to it, but when you're flashing back to something that happened in the same episode, like, no. Or the episode previously, like 1 week ago. And especially, and this is something Haikyuu did quite a bit, especially when it's like a 3-minute flashback. Like, I don't need a 3-minute flashback. Like, give me the 30-second chunky goodness. I don't need a whole chunk of my episode. And again, that's where Naruto, like, you have half of the episodes that are flashback. So, or like an entire 15 minutes.
Sorry. To trigger the lobby, everybody. Sorry about that.
Anyway, okay. So so we talked about flashbacks, we talked about animation style. I thought the animation style was good most of the time too, and it was pretty clean. I think a lot of the impactful moments were supposed to be impactful, and the ball physics, I'd say 80-90% of the time were awesome.
Ball physics in terms of ball collision, yes, but in terms of gravity physics, no.
Yeah, no. But like the collision physics.
Yeah, collision physics.
Here's a toss for you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Braydn.
So I want to give a shout out to the intro song, which I love that song. That is some hype nonsense. I want to wake up every day to that thing. I might set that as my alarm clock. I should actually, while you guys are talking here in a second, I will do that. In other notes, though, I brought this up to you guys. I want to dock it for the spoilers in the intro.
Yep.
The specific one I want to call out to is that in the intro it reveals that the gas station guy, who's like just this, who could have been a cool shopkeeper character, like a outside of school character. He's the new coach.
Yeah.
That's in the intro of the first episode. I'm like,
Anyone
Don't do that.
Anyone who watches our show knows that we hate anime intros because we hate spoilers and they all have
That's
spoilers.
not true. I love the Yuri on Ice intro specifically because it's so good and it doesn't spoil anything. It's just dancing.
Well,
it's wonderful.
the unfortunate,
Some don't spoil.
yeah, the unfortunate thing is that the standard is that the intro will spoil the entire show.
Yeah.
While the exceptional few don't spoil the show. And I forget which one it was, but essentially the intro changed as you watch the season, essentially revealing more of the intro as it became relevant. I don't remember what that anime was though.
That's cool. Anyway, so what are we thinking in terms of art then? So we talked a little bit about the music, talked about the animation, the art style. We didn't talk a lot about the art style. I thought the art style fit the genre pretty well. One of the things my wife especially pointed out is the hash shading under the chins was often weird and distracting and did not look good. And so I thought that decision in the art style was strange, but like it is what it is. It was a small thing, but it did stand out to me as we watched the show. Like that just looks out of place and weird. But anyway.
Okay. Noted.
Okay, so
so
what are we thinking? As I'm looking at our scale here, I'm thinking it was good. Like the art was good. The music was not too exceptional. There were a couple good songs, but it was fairly standard. So good is a 4, and it says the composition often delivers powerful moments in an excellent fashion. I'm thinking about when the ball was spiked, when characters were moving, when they were interacting with each other, how it looked overall. The sound design was good. I loved the squeaking of the shoes. For me, I thought it was pretty good. Like I'd be happy giving it a 4 for art.
Yeah, I'd agree on 4.
What do you think, Braydn?
I mean, I liked some powerful moments when they happened, but on the general, I would probably set it more towards a 3.5.
3.5.
And yeah, no, it had while it did, as I would say, sit at a baseline of what I expect anime to have. Like it did change things up. It reused animations. It had some good music. It had some not great music.
Yeah.
But then it did also rise up now and again with some good good volleyball animation.
You know, that's fair. I totally agree with you. Actually, that's fair. I think 3.5 is good. I would go 3.5. Yeah, I'm convinced.
Okay.
What do you guys think? Do we land on 3.5?
Yeah, I think 3.5 would be the final decision on that.
All right. 3.5 for art. Next category is story. This includes plot devices, tone/mood, continuity, world building, pacing, rules and systems, and tropes. And I'm just going to start by saying the word pacing, which for me was a really rough point. But if I'm thinking about it technically, was it as bad technically as much as I didn't enjoy it? No. I think that for what the show's trying to do, which is a long form, slow development show, I think the pacing fit what they were going for, but I still think it wasn't fantastic. I hated a lot of the pacing, but I think technically it was okay.
I'm good with okay, just because like the thing that burned me out was, it's just a lot of volleyball. That's one thing I want to shout out is like the overarching story is much bigger than this arc.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like we're advancing so much in like the beats by beats, even though we're getting to the next tier of the tournaments and whatnot. It doesn't feel like it's like going somewhere. It feels like we are in a microcosm of experience time and time again in these arcs that they throw. So I also got burned out as via this. So I don't think it's great at the tempo, but I don't know, it's not terrible.
So I checked, and the manga finished in July 20th of 2020.
Ooh, nice.
So the manga is complete. I don't know how much the anime covers of the manga. And so it sounds like the both of you have watched the rest of the anime that's come out, right? Or only a part of it. So you have.
I've watched everything.
I haven't watched everything. No.
I haven't watched the movies. I will correct. I haven't watched the movies.
Okay. Because for me, where I've only seen the first season, it seems like, again, the first season is about mostly just establishing the teams, establishing the players, establishing the expectations that surround these different schools and organizations in these tournaments.
And to that, I'll say they did pretty good.
Exactly. Like even the rivalry of the the trash dump match.
Oh yeah,
or
the battle at the trash heap.
Battle of the trash heap.
Yeah.
Where it's like even that, it's all establishing these things, and on that point, I think they did really well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's what I was saying. Like, I think for what they were trying to accomplish, they did it well. But I still think it could be noted that they could have accomplished the same thing in less time and told more story than if they didn't focus quite so long on those things. So I think because there's room for improvement, I can't say it was great, but I do think they hit what they were going for.
So,
because
what would you cut then? Where you've seen more of the story, what characters do you cut out because their story isn't relevant later?
Okay, again, it's not the characters that get cut out, it's the amount of time spent on certain events. Okay, for example, like the third to last episode, right? Where literally every hit, every serve, everything was, it took, like, I actually sat down during a couple of the episodes and I like sketched out, like, I did. I was like, okay, how long does each play take on average for these 2 episodes? And on average, the plays took like minutes, like whole minutes for one play. Not even for like a set or like literally there was an episode where they did like half of a set. Not even a whole set. Like, so it's just the amount of time they took to do those kinds of things. Like within the last match against the final 2 teams, it was just like, okay, those episodes could have all been combined into like 2 episodes total or 3 episodes total. They didn't have to be 6 episodes, and they could have gotten on to more of the story. And I know they have like seasons to fit within, but that's kind of what I mean when I say like, don't take anything out, but maybe condense it a little bit.
Yeah. I think where this, it's hard. It's hard, and it should be. It shouldn't be easy. Yet, I want to say where I normally expect the story to like have arcs and falls and whatnot. Most of that was beats either the setup arc or the beats in between the arcs where they like come to and resolve like how that last fight went, what's next in the story. That's the story moving. Whereas the arcs inside themselves, they're doing great things that I want to talk about later in the next section with characters, but they're not really moving stuff forward. So we're just sitting there watching a game, which I liked doing as I'm now more of an anime fan, but as a pacing of a story, which I think is the biggest tempo here.
Yeah.
That seems to be on the weaker end. I do want to shout out the world building. That world feels full again because they did so well with the characters.
I agree.
Although it is Tokyo and sports, so there's a lot of world building already done for them in that sphere.
Yeah. And on that point too, go ahead, Sky.
Well, just the one point that I would kind of bring to what you were saying about the pacing, where like the games are where the games happen, and then in between is where the story's being moved forward. That's actually why I would have to dock them pretty significantly on the flashbacks.
Yes.
And I forget what it was, but there's another anime where essentially like the idea is that unfortunately it's all too common where they pull in a flashback like in a moment and it breaks the action. And again, pointing at Naruto, where that's what they do with filler, where it's like, oh, we're in the middle of action. Let's go skip over to some other random B plot while the A plot is on pause. That's what a lot of the flashbacks felt like for me in Haikyuu. Whereas what I feel like would have been a better way to do that is to have those flashbacks be present and there between the matches so that by the time you arrive at the match, all that emotional baggage is on the floor and is now being digested by the players. So you see why they're making the decisions, why that play is a slap in the face of someone else, compared to, oh, you got slapped in the face. Oh, now I find out why that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get to have that shock and awe of like, oh, he just did that, compared to, oh, he just did that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the flashbacks in that way, but I totally see where you're coming from. On the other topics, though, so we have plot and plot devices. For me, those both felt like they tracked really well. They obviously had a story in mind they were trying to tell. The micro story and the macro story, I think, tracked well in terms of plot, and the devices they used to move the plot forward felt very natural and consistent, and the continuity of the show, like with the characters and how they were acting, why they were acting, I think for the most part was really good. So yeah, I think the other points are on par with what I'd expect from a good show. Maybe the plot for me is more in the higher realm of like good, but where are you guys kind of landing score wise as we look at story?
Well, because I'm looking at a rubric here. It says the story was sometimes nonsensical, inconsistent, boring, confusing, ambiguous, unoriginal, and disappointing. I wouldn't say that it like hit that 2 landing of bad under our 3 scoring of meh. However, I do think it was reaching towards that overall, story wise.
Yeah,
so I would go with 2.5.
Yeah. For me, the big things that hit that was like, for me, it was most of the time it was sensical and consistent, but sometimes it was boring, and I will say unoriginal. I will say that it wasn't like it's a if you've seen sports if you've seen sports anime, it does what sports anime do. So I'm leaning towards the 3 myself. Skyler, what are you thinking?
I'm ballpark 3, so 3.5, 2.5. You can convince me either way.
So would we land at 3 comfortably? Do we think?
Yeah, we've already added our notes or tidbits. Maybe it's a 2.8, but we don't really do that. So
yeah, I'm
3 is fine for me.
And just for me, like, I would go down to a 2.5, but the plot and the plot devices they used for me were good enough felt good enough that, like, I'd pull it from 2.5, land into 3 just for that, even if the pacing for me was a little painful.
This solid was outweighing the grievance we had.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
All right, so we're on 3 for story. Next is characters. This includes character design, character development, motivation, action/inaction, why they did not do certain things, relationships, and personality. Let's just say, to begin, personality for all characters through the roof. I think the characters had personality to spare.
Like, even some of like the background characters for Kageyama, like from the junior high rounds, they were there. They were there and existed in that world. I could fully convinced that they had their own intentions that I understand that went through for it.
And the college guys who were at every match. They're awesome. Love those guys.
Okay. Oh, I almost forgot. Oh, I don't want to bring this up. So you know that guy, the grouchy guy that watches all the games?
Yeah.
I think he's in the first scene of the first episode, watching the TV match of the same school at where our main character, when he's in junior high still. Sorry, my brain's going with the minutes. When Hanada's like biking up past it, he stops and watches a match. I think it's the old guy that's in the same scene with him.
Really?
I really think it is. Anyway, he's also a character.
Catch that. That's funny. That's funny. Other thoughts on characters?
Oh, so good. Because not only did every single person in that show have their own character, their own characters had relationships with their own team that was fleshed out to a point where I cared about whatever was going on in those microcosms.
Yeah.
So I'm actually trying to think, are there really any static characters that you spend a lot of time with?
I think the only static characters are the ones that needed to be static. And like for example, the team school representative guy.
No, even he progressed and grew.
He did progress and grow, but it was not like the rest of the team.
Well, but for the amount of
He did
time
grow
that
a
he
little
was
bit.
given, he grew, he changed,
True.
he
No,
progressed.
that's true.
For the amount of time he was given. Only the manager chick, whatever her name is.
The team manager.
She's the only one that I can think of where nothing happened with her.
Actually, she even grew a little bit. She like made the sign and got out of her comfort zone a little bit.
I thought they
but
found
she
her.
definitely wasn't the focus.
At some point, like her assistant girl, who was that this season? That was this season, right? Or is that next season?
I don't think so. I think that's next season.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, that's a good point though, Skyler. And that's one of the things I like most about the show. Or let me rephrase. I think that's one of the things the show did so well on was that every one of the characters had a motivation. They tracked with that motivation. They acted towards that motivation. And when their motivation was not consistent with what needed to happen for the story or for their character to perform better in the world, they changed their motivation. Example already of when Kageyama was taken out of the game and then the other guy came in. So yeah, no, I fully on board with you there.
I'm trying to think. The only other static character I could think of, because you asked the question and I had an answer, it was I think the Great King character. I can't find his name for the life of me.
Oh,
but the Great King character doesn't really change, and he didn't need to.
For me, the way he
so.
changed
he did,
was in his anger toward the other team, because he was always the cool, calm, collected, oh, don't worry, it's all going to be okay. But then he actually started to show his true colors, and his rage started to come out in the second to last episode. Like, that was pretty intense. I think he didn't change as a person, but his personality you saw start to like come out from underneath the sheets a little bit.
And
so
I
that
would
was
agree with
like,
that.
Okay,
that was pretty interesting.
I'm
not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying.
No, to add to that, I think it was after that match, one of the teammates said, "Hey, weren't you going to say something along the lines of one player can't win a game, or one good player can't win a game, or something to that effect?" And he says, "No, because there were many strong players on that team." And so again, it's that he's super cocky, but because he got pushed to game 3. And what is it? Whatever that term is, where you're locked until you hit the +2.
Oh, you're in match point.
Yeah.
Well, that whole thing, I think that kind of had him reel back in on that cockiness, and kind of a pride check essentially.
So let's look at a rubric here. So good characters to us are often understandable, consistent, reasonable, adequately static, dynamic, and relatable. Exceptional characters are always understandable, consistent, reasonable, adequately static, dynamic. I'm thinking this is an exceptional character show.
Yeah, actually.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason I stay around to watch this show is they developed so many good characters.
Yeah.
So many.
Funnily enough, I don't think we touched on this enough in our enjoyment part of the first part of the show, where we talked about the things we liked, didn't like. Like, if I think about what I enjoyed most about the show, it's the characters. And if I tell someone to watch it, it's because you want to see the characters evolve and change. So are we saying
all
5?
40 of them. All 70 of them.
5.
Is this
all 100 characters in that show.
Oh, wow.
Take a 5.
Okay. All right. This is
Smokes,
a 5.
Even the sneaking audiences had character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the audience crowds, they each had their own.
Okay, hold on. Wait. I just remembered something. Remembered something. I'm not saying we should change our score, but something that I couldn't have cared less about in the show, and this is not a comment on men's or women's sports. It's just in this particular show.
We're here to talk. Go for it.
I had no connection to the female volleyball team, the girls volleyball team from the same high school, where it showed their practices and then they were at the match and then they lost and they were all sad. Like,
oh yeah,
see,
no,
they mattered so little. I'm sure they were good characters, and even though I wouldn't dock the score for this, but I'm saying, Like, if there were
Yeah.
any characters in the show, I was like, if they didn't exist, I wouldn't have cared because the show wouldn't have not have been any different. For me, it's the women's volleyball team. Like, to me, it was just
Yeah.
superfluous, and they could have not been in the show at all, and it would have been just as good a show.
Sure. The only thing that I would kind of pull up is that again, well, not again, but the women's volleyball team for that high school served as a foil to the motivation and also just the mindset that the men's volleyball team had compared to the women's volleyball team.
Oh, totally.
And so in that sense,
Totally.
I think that it was a really good foil between the two teams of the same high school.
Yes, I think technically it was a good thing to have in there, but for me, from an enjoyment perspective, I didn't care. I was like,
okay.
nah, okay, like, move on. Like, the men's team is already motivated enough. I know they're motivated. I don't need someone who's not motivated to convince me how motivated they are. I see how motivated they are. Just move on with the main people. There's enough people I care about. I don't need to care about more people who are only going to be in the show for 15 minutes out of 25 episodes.
I guess in the realm of anime hyper motivation, you have to have something to base their hyper motivation off of.
More motivation. Anyway, okay, so wow, a 5 for characters. Let's go on to delivery. Delivery includes the translation of the subtitles, the voice acting, and the script.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I actually did listen to both the sub and the dub.
Oh, sweet.
And by different runs of this.
I listened to a couple episodes of the dub, but mostly I did the sub.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to see how it was. What'd you think?
I don't have any complaints. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know how we can separate too much the script from the characters on this because every character spoke differently. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can't, unfortunately, I'm just saying that because I like the characters so much. I don't want to dock the script on anything because I don't know how they could have delivered that otherwise when this is mostly a talking anime.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talk and show.
I think
And
from
a lot of talking.
I think from that perspective, I think the script was actually really good because it focused on the important things. It hit the emotional moments when it needed to. It communicated how the characters felt, I think, really, really well.
Blah! And ga! You know what I mean?
Yeah. And nice that though.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think the script did its job well. I think the voice acting was pretty darn good. For most of the characters, even though it's a nitpicky thing, but they were high schoolers and they all had pretty mature voices for high schoolers, other than Hinata, who had the most realistic high school boy voice.
You're right.
But yeah, and the translation was pretty darn good too. So like for me, I think it was good. I think the delivery was believable, genuine, understandable, and I think it elevated the experience of the emotion of the plays. So I thought it enriched the show. I thought it was good.
I do want to shout and say that I think the sub had less, I'm trying to say, highs and lows of emotion. Like they are up in the screaming range a lot of the time.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
A lot of the loud. Whereas the dub, I thought, had a lot more depth and range into how the characters enacted. So
fair.
Interesting. Normally it's not
I
the
don't know
case.
if yet I want to dock anime for being screaming anime. Cause it's all of them, but a lot of people like it. I like the range of emotion.
Yeah, me too.
But the dub also went on the other side. They're good. Sorry, Skyler. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's just normally the dubs that I've listened to, they don't have the same just emotional range that the subs do.
Oh, sure.
I would say they don't as frequently go as big, but they frequently go more small.
Yes.
Anyway.
So it was noteworthy to me.
What are you guys thinking on delivery? I could be convinced to go anywhere from a 3 to a 4 pretty easily because it was what I expect from a good show. I don't think the delivery was like unbelievably strong.
I'd go
thought it
for
was
a
good.
3.5. 3.5 will be mine.
I'd go for a 4 because the script delivered on the characters they had.
Yeah. Yeah, let's
So
see here.
if
So
the characters like buoyed up, like maybe it was fine writing, but it translated well. Like everything the characters wanted to say, like the ga or the
mhm,
seta, that great. I loved all of that. Good job.
mhm.
Thank you for including that. Don't just wash it over with simplifying it for anime. You did good. You did diversity.
Yeah.
You did good.
So 3 is on par with what we would expect from a good show. It doesn't stand out for being good or bad. And then good, which is a 4, is the delivery is often believable, genuine, understandable, elevating, and enriching. My hat I'll throw in for good
Yeah.
is that just take Hinata as one character. Hinata, his voice acting and delivery was really, it felt very genuine. When he was sad, it really came across as sad. It was believable. It was, the delivery of all the characters was understandable. It was really clear what they were trying to convey, and they conveyed it. So I'm landing kind of in the 4 range if we just take Hinata alone, and I think that they pervade that through all the characters pretty well.
Yeah.
So what do we think? We have 2 4s and a 3.5. Skyler, would you feel good if we go up to a 4? Or do you have
Yeah.
anything you really think deserves to kind of rein it in a little bit?
Rein it in. Yeah.
Well, I guess that for me, it's just, is there any delivery of lines? Was there anything that they did while speaking that really stood out to me? And that's where I have to say, no, not particularly, which is why I would give it a 3.5. Because yes, it is good. It was, you have those characters that are the screaming characters where they're just constantly yelling. But even in here, you had characters that were not always yelling.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had that range there.
What if I give 3 examples why I think it would be worth a 4?
Okay.
Yep.
Example 1.
That's what we did.
Example 1 is end of the show, they lose, right? Hinata, Kageyama, like their voice acting at the loss was really convincing of the confusion, the pain, and the anger they had built up at this loss, and it was pretty powerful. Number 2, when Hinata was trying to communicate to Kageyama at multiple points in the show that he was trying to improve, to get better, that he wanted to drive, he really, like, that passion came through more than just someone talking passionately. It really pushed his character. So those are 2 examples. The third example I'll give is the tall, lanky blocker for the main school, whose voice was so often just flat. But then the few moments he decided to become emotional, you kind of felt it. And then the other way around with the libero. The libero, his delivery was really genuine when he was fighting with the ace, when he was trying to convince him to come back to the team. So those are 3 examples I'd give of why I think it deserves a 4.
Yeah. I take those as the often believable, often genuine. The like. Though I do want to note that this is probably the one of the 4 I'm weakest at having a range to judge on.
Sure.
Because I understand what Skyler is saying. Is this all could be well along the lines of average plus.
What you'd expect. Sure.
Yet, it did it well. It did it notably well, and I want to give it a 4 today.
Sure. If we all decide to go to a 3.5, I am actually happy to go there. I'm totally good with that. It's just those scenes, when I think about giving it a 3, those scenes stick out in my head, especially the one where after they lost, and I was like, that was kind of, to me, that was on a little bit of a higher level. That it had more emotion than someone just trying to cry into a mic. Like, I really felt they delivered that strong. So those scenes stick out to me, but if we decide to go 3.5, I'm good. I'm good to do that.
Which, from what we were saying about art and how it just like has a lot of good and then it peaks above the rest from there, that's what we gave it a 3.5. So I'm happy with that 3.5 here as well.
Yeah, I guess either 3.5 or 4, because of those scenes, they do elevate and enrich it. in those
Wait, you're swapping on us now? What are you doing?
Hey,
Well,
we
kind of like you
presented-
said, where it's like this one is kind of the one where the range is more ambiguous than others.
At least until we get better at rating it.
Sure.
So what do we
We're
think?
not there yet. This is still pretty new for us. So
4?
I think 3.5.
We doing a 4? 3.5? 4?
3.5. Skyler?
You brought up some critical scenes there, man.
I'm thinking we push it to a 4. I really am. I think there were some scenes
that really stood
out.
With those scenes in mind, I think a 4 would be justified.
All right, we've got 2 on the 4 train.
I know. See, oh my gosh. Because
I will say
just
this.
take my earlier 4. Just take my earlier 4. I want to. The reason why I'm waffling is because those scenes I don't remember. Like I have scenes that I remember now because it's fresh to me, but like pivotal moments in the whole thing, it don't stick with me as like what Haikyuu is. Though my earlier thing wasn't about that; it was about just generally the script delivered and delivered strongly. These amazing characters.
Okay,
Kudos
Braydn,
to you. Take that.
I have a question for you.
Hit.
Do you think the characters would have been as good or as lovable if the delivery for those characters was not often genuine, understandable, believable, and enriching?
I don't remember what I need to answer, but exactly. That's exactly what I'm
So,
getting at.
I would propose that's a big factor of what made the characters a 5 for me is their believable, genuine delivery of their voice acting in addition to their character design. So that to me is why I would push it to a 4, is that it's pretty closely linked to their character.
The voice acting, the script rose to meet the exceptional characters, even if they might typically not reach that far. That's why I'll finish that off.
Okay, yeah.
I'm fine with a 4. Let's go
Love
with a 4.
it. Okay, we've given it a 4.
Lock it in.
So just to recap our technical here. So for art, 3.5. For story, 3. Characters, 5. And delivery, 4. Which brings our combined technical score to a 7.75.
Now, where does that place us with our last one?
7.75. So the last show that we did was Cells at Work.
Yep.
Technical score for Cells at Work landed at 6.5. So this achieves a
I think that about lands it right.
7.75.
Yeah, it works, guys. It works. I'm happy. Great, good.
Awesome. Any other final notes or thoughts from you guys before we jump into our outro here, and give recommendations for shows that if you liked this, you should watch also?
Yes, on technical, I will say I acknowledge that I am still have a ways to go to like specifically watch for stuff I need to talk about for this section, and so I can properly judge this section. I'm excited for that, but for now, it is draining, and I'm ready to move on.
All right. Well, let's just jump in. Recommendations for other shows. Recommendations for other shows.
All good sports anime. Just take them all, throw it in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
In fact, if we just pull up a quick little list here,
I've seen 2 cents, and I recommend both of them. Like, first of all, being the acclaimed Yuri on Ice.
okay,
Gorgeous, just gorgeous anime. Especially the first episode. They went all out in that first episode. The story just locks my heart in for the first 6. The intro song doesn't spoil anything, and it's fantastic. And honestly, I love figure skating, so I love watching that. So, Yuri on Ice. And then second, I'm currently watching Skate the Infinity, and it's fun. I don't know how to. I keep thinking over and over. It's like they mix skateboarding and wrestling, because the characters in there they're not human characters like we have in this show. They're fantastical anime characters that look like wrestling characters to me, that are portrayed in a Earth non-magical sense, but they're fantastical. They're not just skateboarders.
Interesting.
All right.
It's fun. It's fun. I like it.
If we look at the top sports anime from my anime list, we've got Haikyuu season 2, Kuroko no Basket, a basketball one. Yuri on Ice is on there. Haikyuu just all over the place. Free, which is a swimming.
I've heard a lot about Free. I've heard a lot about that.
I have too, actually. There's also a baseball one Free, and then Megalobox. That's definitely one. Yep, that's definitely one.
Is it boxing or what is that one?
Yeah, it's a boxing one. Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, those are some of the top sport one. Oh, wait a second. Is this the one we
alluded to?
Kaijo.
Good. I didn't know that name.
Is the name of the booty
booty slapping
competition
fun.
One. I'm not saying we recommend it. I'm just saying it is the one that we remembered.
Yes.
Skyler, do you have any shows you'd recommend for anyone who liked Haikyuu?
Just for the slow burning plot, like if you like that, again, I brought it up earlier, My Hero Academia. Because it has a very slow burning plot, but when it actually gets to a point that there needs to be a resolution, it's quite a time.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I agree with that. And it also kind of has some action. Haikyuu has some action.
They're both shonen.
Yep.
I'll throw in a couple hats here. Slow burning plot, has some action, characters develop over time. If you're willing to be in it for the long haul, we talked about Naruto. I look, I have a very interesting relationship with Naruto. At the end of the day, I think it's good. If you use anime filler list, get rid of the 500 episodes of filler from Naruto and Shippuden. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That's what everybody says about it. So there you go.
And then I'll do one other show, since that one is probably not attainable for most people. 1,000 episodes is a lot. And I'm gonna say,
no, it's 500 without the filler, or is it 1,000 without the extra 500?
I'm gonna say, and I know this is gonna get flack. I'm gonna say Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm sure everyone has already seen it, but here's the thing. If the things you liked about Haikyuu are the characters and getting to know the characters and seeing the characters develop, Avatar: The Last Airbender is a fantastic story of dynamic characters who change over time. It's great. There's another anime that has characters that change over time, but I'm going to save that one for a special future episode. So sneaky hint there. Cough, goo goo, tattoo on my left arm.
Yo.
Okay, so we'll say those are our recommendations. We'll put those in the video.
I mean, at that point, we're just recommending just anime, just good anime. At that
good
point.
anime, yeah. So just a quick recap. Let's throw them again. If you want good sports animes, Kuroko no Basket, Yuri on Ice,
Skate Infinity,
Free, Megalobox, and Skate Infinity, SK Infinity. I threw out Naruto, if you use the filler list, and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Skyler, you threw out
My Hero Academia.
Yep, MHA. Okay, awesome. So that was this episode. Thanks everyone for joining us. Join us next week when we're actually going to do a review of the anime movie that just released, Bell. Gonna do the movie. Now let me double check. I'll have to come in next time and say where it's available because it just aired in theaters, so it may not be available to stream yet, but we will cover Bell. Check out all of our social media, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. Arigatou gozaimasu for listening, and until next time, Jane.
Good night.
See ya.
だからもう一回トーストを呼んでくれ